Welcome everyone to Mayhemtainment 11. We're going to review by request WWE No Way Out of Texas. I am joined by my co-host and executive producer Ms. Pa. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Just search Mayhem Media Inc. Hit the like button, share it out, and leave us a comment about anything we talk about in this episode. Ms. Pa, we got a request to review this card. It's not a spectacular card. There were some good matches, but we're going to review this quick. Match. Go ahead.
I was going to say. I mean, I've seen worse, but this definitely is not in like the top of the greatest matches I've seen.
Yes. Now, hopefully, people will reach out and request us to review more, whether it's TV shows or movies or wrestling shows or events. Please reach out, send us a message. We'll be happy to review something for you. Yeah. So we're going to, at least with wrestling, we're going to rate matches on a body slam scale. 1 out of 10 body slams is how we're going to rate these matches. Match 1 is a tag match. Mark Marrow and Goldust versus the Headbangers. This is right in the middle of when Mark Marrow, or I'm not sure if it's the middle or early Mark Marrow and Sable feud before Sable breaks away, and then they end up having a match against each other, Mark Marrow and Sable. This is during that. Goldust is going with Luna going through his various phases. He was Maryland Dust on this particular event. He goes through a couple of different ones around this time.
I think they referred to him as the artist formerly known as Goldust.
Yes, but then he starts dressing as different people, and I believe this one was Maryland Dust. And they go against the Headbangers. A weird match, to be sure.
Definitely
To me, it was set up more for the Sable-Luna feud than it was for any kind of match between the Headbangers and Mark Marrow and Goldust. Mark Marrow, being jealous, sent Sable back, and Luna stayed out. And then at the end of the match, they come out, and the post-match antics are much more entertaining than the actual match itself. We gave it a 2 out of 10 body slam. It was pretty terrible. Just so everybody knows, 5 would be like an average match. It was fine. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. Anything higher than a 7 is considered to be a solid to good match. 7 or higher.
The one thing I do have to say is I do have to give credit to Mark Marrow because he was at least trying to engage the crowd and trying to get some sort of crowd interaction there.
Yeah, that's something you don't really see in matches even at that time for in a tag match. For 3 out of the 4 participants to really not really engage with the crowd. They didn't really, even the Headbangers didn't really reach out to call out to the crowd or look out to the crowd. There was really no crowd engagement from any of the wrestlers except Mark Marrow. And Mark Marrow played into it, just the way he should. But the only time they were getting into it was when Mark Marrow was engaging with the crowd or doing something that, called for it. The Headbangers win. And again, the post-match antics, Sable comes out, Sable and Luna, Mark Marrow holds Sable back, Goldust holds Luna back, but that was really almost more exciting than the actual match itself. The match didn't really...
It wasn't almost more exciting. It definitely was more exciting.
Yeah, all right.
It definitely was more exciting than the match.
All right. You wanted to mention something else about that match, the tag match, something that hurt the match itself.
I felt like the tag took way too long.
Yeah, the hot tag, the one from Thrasher tagging in Mosh. They had Thrasher in, anybody who's familiar with wrestling, in a tag match, it's not uncommon for one side to dominate, to, tag each other in and out and just beat on one guy. And then that person gets what's called a hot tag. They tag in their partner, they come in. Mosh would have did it kind of in this case. It was also a botched hot tag. It was really a crappy hot tag.
It was.
I mean, ideally, you go over, you tag the person who's been out for the last, ideally, 5 to 10 minutes, and then they come in and they start knocking both the other team around, and they get a flurry of offense going, and then their partner gets back up, and then they do a tag team maneuver. It's a great it's a great lead into to a quick ending of a match if you want, or a surprise ending.
Not only that, it also gives the chance for, if wrestlers getting gassed and just needs to catch his breath and get a minute.
Yeah.
Just to collect himself.
Yeah.
But in this one, the match was starting to get a lull. The action was starting to slow down. You could see.
Yeah.
Both of the wrestlers were starting to get, a little fatigued. They needed to catch a breath.
Yeah, and but to talk about the point on Mark Merrill being the only one that engaged the crowd in a hot tag, ideally the person that's on the sideline is trying to get a clap going from the crowd or stomping his foot or doing something to hype that hot tag right before they actually make the tag.
Absolutely.
Mosh didn't even do any of that.
No, not at all.
So the crowd reaction from the hot tag was only 50% of what it should have been.
I don't even know if it was that.
And then the follow-up was terrible, so even the hot tag was botched. The Headbangers did end up winning, but it was a letdown match. Again, I think it was more to set up stuff between Sable and Luna and to play on the Mark Merrow Sable feud that's building. Match 2, Pantera versus Taka Michinoku for the light heavyweight championship. Taka Michinoku is the champion. The light heavyweight championship is a joke, in my opinion. Even at this point, it was never a good title. They never established it with any credibility, and they don't have it. I mean, it was set up to try and combat WCW's cruiserweight, because even though at this point where we watched it, it was after WWE started coming back from the ratings war and started winning more often than not again. Okay, that's when this took place. But the light heavyweight, the cruiserweight championship was something WCW always had over WWE. It was always something, an edge that they had over it. And the WWE, I mean, I guess you could call it an attempt, but it was never a good attempt for them to combat the cruiserweight division.
They could have done so much more with it than what they did. It felt like a half-assed attempt at best.
Well, the whole thing was built because they signed that Japanese wrestler Taka Michinoku.
Yeah.
I mean, and then he only ended up through the life of the light heavyweight championship. He only ended up holding it like two or three times, and it was not a very big spans of time. They were for never very big spans of time. Pantera, who was dressed like a furry.
Yeah, like a goth Hello Kitty.
Yeah, and he was also, I mean, they had him dressed like a luchador. He was definitely, if he was a luchador, he was on the heavier side of a luchador. He was a little heavier, but he still pulled off some great high-flying moves.
Yes.
Despite his size, he pulled off some great high-flying moves, and that helped a lot. That helped. But the overall match was pretty boring, except for when Pantera pulled out a couple of those moves. And then, of course, they did have, because Taka Michinoku and Brian Christopher are feuding, and Jerry the King Lawler being Brian Christopher's father. He's involved with it. So Brian Christopher came down to commentate in that match, and I think, that was entertaining. He's entertaining on the mic, so that helped also. But for me personally, I only gave it a 2.5 out of 10 body slams. What did you rate them?
Now, I had given that match a 3.
A 3?
Just because from a technical aspect, some of the things that Pantera did.
Yeah, you're right.
In between the ropes, flawlessly, the way he did to land right on him on the floor. I mean, there was a couple of good moments where the technicality of it was flawless.
Yes, I will agree that Pantera and his ability, his high-flying luchador abilities, for me, I only gave him a half a point bonus for that. I'm assuming you gave him a full point bonus for that. Otherwise, we likely both had the match rated at 2. Taka retained the title, big surprise, because Pantera was somebody who was around for like 3 matches, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not even sure if he shows up beyond that one. So, of course, Taka was going to win. We knew that from the beginning. So, The best you can do is put on a good match, and Pantera did.
Yes.
Taka did not.
No.
I was not impressed with anything he did in that. Match 3. Why don't you introduce that one, Ms. Pa?
So, match 3 was the Quebecers versus the Godwins.
A tag team.
Another tag team match. Yeah. And I knew the Quebecers as the Canadians.
Yeah, from WCW.
From WCW.
Yeah.
And we actually had that conversation because I was like, who the hell are these people? And then I seen them coming out. I was like, oh, wait. I remember them.
Yeah, but as the Canadians, they're Canadians in WCW. They're called the Quebecers in WWE. They're a good tag team. Apparently, they're a former WWE tag team champion. They never became superstars. They were a good, solid tag team to have on your roster, but never stars really.
No, but like you said, they were a good, solid team. Like they could hold their own.
Yeah,
but they didn't stand out.
Yeah, and the Godwins usually get good fan reaction, and they also have good fan interaction. But in this match, I think the whole match and the Godwins themselves fell flat.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had said too. It could have been much more than it was.
Yeah, and also another tag match where the hot tag took far too long.
Exactly, and that really hurt it.
Yeah,
because the action started to slow down, and not by design either. It was just again, wrestlers were winded.
Yep.
And trying to stay out on the mat too long.
Yeah, and also it was also another really botched hot tag as well. They didn't really do the hot tag very well, in my opinion, in that match either. And the post match antics in this case were as poor as the match itself.
Yeah, overall there really wasn't anything spectacular to say about this match.
No,
it felt just more like time filler than anything.
Yep. Which is something the WWE, I believe, was still struggling with at this point. They were having trouble getting a great WWE card for pay-per-view card for every match.
And I think for that one, I think we agreed on 2 body slams.
Yeah, 2 body slams for match 3. So that's so far that's a 2, 2.5, and a 2, and Mizpah has it a 2, 3, and a 2. And that takes us to match 4, and this is where the pay-per-view... Now, there's only 7 matches, so we've just talked about the first 3 matches, so the whole opening of the card is basically flat. The crowd's barely into it, only a few times.
Yeah, you couldn't even really hear much crowd interaction.
No. Match 4 is kind of where they turned it. You can see that this is where the matches that they were setting up for this event were really happening. The first 3 just being matches they threw on the card because they needed matches on the card is what it felt like. This one is for the end. This happens during the NWA invasion. So Jeff Jarrett, who is the NWA North American champion, he goes against Blackjack Bradshaw, who is feuding with. I'm totally drawing a blank on his name right now. The other guy in the NWA. I'm totally drawing a blank on his name right now. So I'll think about that. But, he was part of the new Blackjacks. The WWE made a new Blackjacks, and this is before Bradshaw dropped that moniker and started... I believe he drops this moniker, and then he's going to join the Ministry. Because we're going to talk about Farouk later on, and that's when they form the Acolytes. So, later on, after he drops his Blackjack, I believe he gets set up with the Ministry. The Undertaker's going to come back and do a Ministry thing. This is actually when Kane has him out, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes also. So, Jeff Jarrett and Bradshaw, I gave this rating a 5 out of 10 body slams. It was a good match. It was a good match. There wasn't anything super spectacular about it, but it was a good, far better than the other match. Yeah, it was far better than the first 2. Bradshaw wins by DQ. Jeff Jarrett retains the title. He got himself disqualified. Who didn't see that coming? Everybody did. Which is why the rating wasn't... If Bradshaw could have got an upset, I would have probably given that a 6 or a 7. But it was a typical Jeff Jarrett DQing himself. Even if Jeff Jarrett got the win, I might have given it a 6. But having a DQ and giving Bradshaw the win, but he retains the titles, something the WWE does too much of and has always done too much of. Again, now this is another match yet where there's post-match antics. So we're on match 4. So 4 matches now have had post-match antics. Also something the WWE does way too much of, in my opinion.
At this point, it seems like the focus was on the post-match antics versus the actual match.
Yeah, although you can't beat this one. Anytime you can have the LOD come out, as the Legion of Doom comes out, because the NWA comes out, starts attacking Bradshaw, the LOD come out to back him up. And of course, there's anytime the LOD is involved, as a huge pop, which is when the LOD comes out, even with as good as match number 4 was, the Jeff Jarrett Bradshaw match was, when the LOD came out, I think that might have been, until we get to the main event, one of the few times where the roof is literally blown off. I mean, when the LOD came out, the people went insane.
Yeah, you could hear hear cheering and booing and clapping, and
yeah, I mean,
you could hear noise.
Yeah, the LOD are always are going to come out to massive amounts of fan cheer when they come out.
Prior to that match, the concessions were making a lot of money.
Yeah, and also I'd like to point out quickly, just because you mentioned the concessions, many point in time, JR and the King in that calling that pay-per-view say that they're at a sold-out arena. That it is clearly not a sold-out arena. There are clearly seats empty in every shot and almost every angle that you see. There's empty seats.
Well, and later they even give you the number of attendants.
Yeah, and it's not a sold-out event. So, but repeatedly, the King and JR say in front of the sold-out audience, and it was not a sold-out audience. There were clearly seats empty. Match 5. Something that we don't see, not even just in WWE, something we don't see in wrestling very often, the 10-man tag.
Yeah, that was a lot of people standing on a ring. And I can see why you don't see that very often, because keeping track of all of that and the logistics of that, I'm sure, is difficult at best.
Yeah. Now, the match starts somehow, for some strange reason. Oh, let's talk about who it is. It's the Nation of Domination. This is when the Nation has 5 members. It's Farouk, who's still the leader. The Rock, who has started to challenge for the leadership of that. He's the Intercontinental Champion. This is Rock Prime. I mean, this is prime heel for Rock. It's fantastic to watch him. Farouk was giving he gives a backstage interview during that event. The Rock standing right next to him. He's got the other guys behind him. But at the end of it, Mizpah asked me, what did he say? And I said, I have no idea. I was watching The Rock the whole time. Who cares what Farouk said? That's how good The Rock is right now. That he's at that point where if he's on the screen, you're watching him. You're not looking at what anybody else is doing or even listening to them.
And the thing is, The Rock wasn't even making any sound.
No, and it doesn't matter. You were like, dude, this is great. I mean, he's
Farouk's over there running his mouth
and everything. Your entire attention is on The Rock.
Couldn't tell you a word that he said.
Nope, me neither. So it's the Nation of Domination. Farouk leading it, The Rock, Kama Mustafa, who ends up becoming the Godfather, D'Lo Brown, and Mark Henry, who's still doing the World's Strongest Man. And they go against 3 members of the DOA, Skull and 8-Ball, and then they still have Change. This is after Bryan Adams, I believe, left the WWE and is back with WCW, but the Disciples of Apocalypse, the DOA, has not officially broken up yet. They roll with 3 members for a while, and they kind of roll with Ken Shamrock and Ahmed Johnson, who are the other 2 participants in this match. And those 5 guys kind of roll around a little bit, but the DOA is pretty much at its end. So are Los Boricuas, which we'll talk about in the main later on.
Now, I thought this match it was a pretty solid match. I mean, it started out well. For having that many people to keep track of, I felt like they did pretty good with the tags. They, kept a pretty good balance of the flow between, which side had, the control of the match at that time.
Yeah, and we saw tags. We saw legitimate tags. Both teams were tagging in and out. So I think it was good. But it was a really good match. And, of course, it ended in chaos.
Of course. It had to. Yeah, that many people out there, it has to end in chaos.
Yeah. With 10 people, it's going to end in chaos. There's no way around that. And the DOA win. They win over the Nation of Domination, Shamrock, Ahmed Johnson. And it was so that Farouk and The Rock can continue their rivalry and their divide. That was why they lost. Because the Nation is a pretty well-established stable, but they definitely lost to increase the story between The Rock and Farouk.
Well, and that would be why, at the end, The Rock started walking away on his own.
Yeah. Because with Farouk, when Farouk was in charge, the one thing you always had to do at the end of a match, especially a team match, was do the Nation, they hold up the fist, the normal Nation thing that they do, and that has to be done, especially in a team match. So The Rock walking away and Farouk having to call him back down to do it was, part of that. That's something that he's been having to do more and more, and it'll lead up to them fighting and The Rock will take over the nation, and Farouk will go to the Ministry, where he will team with Bradshaw, and they will form the Acolytes. And then, of course, later on, the Acolytes evolve into the APA, the Acolyte Protection Agency. And I believe if you actually ask Bradshaw and Farouk about Farouk being Ron Simmons. By the way, Farouk, former WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He was called Ron Simmons at the time, which was his real name. That's what he was in WCW, and he was a former World Heavyweight Champion.
I did not know that.
Yep, if you didn't know that, you'd know now. Ron Simmons, former WCW Heavyweight Champion. And Farouk, I think if you asked both of them guys, they'd say that the APA and the Acolytes was some of their funnest times in wrestling. And it was. I mean, the Acolytes, especially the APA, when they break away from the Ministry, they did great in the Ministry, but once they break away from the Ministry, they really get great and very entertaining.
Now, match 6. This was actually the match that I personally was looking forward to on this whole card.
Yeah.
Kane versus Vader.
Yeah.
Both big Goliath men, just beating the snot out of each other in the ring.
That's exactly what it was, yep.
And, I mean, now, keep in mind, both of them are really big guys, but they move well in the ring.
Oh, yeah, Vader is uncanny. And so is Kane. I mean, his clothesline from the top rope, what?
Yeah.
A guy that big's not supposed to be able to fly like that. Yeah, they both do, yeah. And that's why I think the match was so good. They are so similar in their big man style. They both have agility that you would not think a big man like both of them would have.
And that's the thing. Both of them, like, you just watch them and you're like, somebody that big can't do that.
Yeah.
But you just watched them do it.
Yeah. And Vader, when he starts swinging those
tree trunks?
Yeah, those tree trunks, those arms of his, he just starts swinging and just starts clubbing people. It's nasty. And it was a nasty match. They did a great job. I mean, it wasn't technical. It was just a beat 'em down, two monsters beating each other. It was a slugfest. Yeah. Kane ended up winning that match. It was this is all part of Kane's path of destruction. He had just eliminated Undertaker. Undertaker's out. I believe the real reason the Undertaker's out at that point is an injury. And then when he comes back, he forms a Ministry. So Kane's continuing his path of destruction. He's eliminated the Undertaker. Now he's eliminated Vader. He'll start, continue to eliminate big guys, and then I believe get his shot at the world title, if I'm not mistaken.
And I gave that match an 8 body slams.
Yeah, 8 out of 10 body slams. I also gave it an 8 out of 10 body slams because it was a really good match. Yeah. And that takes us to the main event, which was, as weird as it is, they had a 10-man tag match, and then they had an 8-man tag match to finish it.
And the set. Well, so let's talk about who it is first.
Now it's Triple H and the New Age Outlaws. Now it was also supposed to be Shawn Michaels. Okay, and this is when they were teasing the New Age Outlaws to become part of DX. They don't officially become part of DX until after WrestleMania, which comes in the following March. And that's when Shawn Michaels retires after his match with Stone Cold. And that's why HBK couldn't be in this match, because they were trying to save him. He was injured. They knew he was injured, and they wanted him for WrestleMania, so they couldn't risk him on this. He's taking time off to rehab his injury. So it's Triple H with Chyna, the New Age Outlaws, who are kind of D-Generation X courting at the moment. And then Savio Vega, which is the weirdest pick I've ever seen for them to make. I don't get Savio Vega, who's with Los Boricuas, who is another stable that's falling apart. I don't understand that. And they go against Owen Hart, Stone Cold, Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, and Chainsaw Charlie, who most people would likely know as Terry Funk. And this match it's weird.
The setup of it, it's all out, no holds barred.
Yeah,
but it held the tag team standards.
Yeah,
like you have to tag in and tag out.
Yeah, when the match starts, everybody's attacking everybody at the beginning of the match. So at the beginning, they probably did announce it, and we just missed it when we were doing our watch through. but we assumed it was just an all-out, going to be these 8 guys beating each other all over the place.
Yeah.
That's what I assumed it was going to be. And then after the first, what was it, the first 5-6 minutes or so?
Yeah, about that.
They started, they got up on the ring ropes and they all started standing on the outside. I'm like, I even said to Miss, I'm like, what are they doing? Is this a tag match? But the whole match was clearly no DQ because they were outside. They were using weapons.
Uh-huh.
They were outside hitting each other. I mean, there was a lot of stuff.
The tag element of it made no sense.
No. And then what's even worse is that they ended up isolating. They did the whole thing where, and it's Earl Hebner. It's Earl. I'm sorry. There's so many. This had a potential to be a 9 or definitely a 10. This could have been a 10 body slam match.
I agree.
But Earl Hebner, who is on his tombstone, the poor man is going to say, every time I shouldn't have been looking, I was, because every time they were trying to do something, the other team, DX. Was trying to do something illegal, Earl Hebner was looking right at him every time. Every single time. Earl Hebner's looking right at him. And then someone from the other team has to run in, and then Earl Hebner has to throw him out. And that goes on for 8 or 9 minutes, where they're just beating up Chainsaw Charlie for 8 or 9 minutes. The oldest man in that whole match. They beat him up for 8 or 9 minutes because Earl Hebner keeps forcing the other team out of the ring. And every time his back is turned, they cheat. It's the oldest wrestling trick in the book, but it works once or twice, maybe 3 times. But come on, 8 or 9 minutes, and you're doing it all the time throughout the whole thing. And Earl Hebner, what's even worse is Earl Hebner seeing it every time. He's not even being distracted.
No, and that was the thing. Literally every time he was supposed to be looking over here while something happened, over here, he's going, "Huh, what?"
Yeah.
And not paying attention to what he's the man needs cue cards. Hey, look over here.
Yeah.
Look over here.
Yeah.
And he'd probably still look in the wrong place.
I'm not an Earl Hebner fan. I'm sorry. Earl Hebner has he's been in great matches. He's been in a lot of matches, and he did fine in his prime. I think at this point he's a little too old and probably shouldn't be in there, at least not with the frequency. Definitely shouldn't be doing main events at this point.
Had they have eliminated the
Tag
whole tag element
Yeah.
of this match, it'd have been an amazing match. If they'd have just eliminated the tag element, I felt like by enforcing the tag rule, all it did was create confusion for the viewer.
Yeah, and also frustration, and not good kind of frustration. Not a good kind of frustration. Yes, there is a good kind of frustration. That first time or two when Triple H and the New Age Outlaws are cheating, you're like, "Arr!" That's what the reaction you get. But after the 6th, 7th, and 8th time, while you're beating an old man for 9 minutes, it just doesn't. Then it's not good frustration. Then it's like, well, all right, this is stupid now. Why is Earl Hebner clearly seeing what's happening and not doing anything about it? That was the worst part, I think. It's not even that they kept cheating for me, I don't think. It's that every time they cheated, Earl Hebner was seeing it. And then still,
nothing.
Yeah, and then it was a really bad choreographed match. And I think you're right. I think the tag element added something that confused everybody, not just the viewers, but the wrestlers.
Yeah.
Because the other side didn't know when to come in. Earl Hebner didn't know where he needed to be looking, not that he ever does. And I think that's what killed the match. It was still a good match because there were still some great elements. Stone Cold threw that trash can at Billy Gunn.
Oh yeah, the flying trash can from across the ring.
Yeah, from outside the ring, Stone Cold's holding the trash can, and then he heaves that thing overhead at Billy Gunn, who's coming in the ring and charging at him. And of course, Billy Gunn is one of the greatest salesmen in the business. So he sold that trash can like $1 million.
And then you got Cactus Jack McFoley.
Yeah,
just being Mick Foley.
Yeah, getting the crap kicked out of him and then doing some insane crap.
Telling him, no, put the barbed wire in my mouth.
Yeah. Wrap the barbed wire around my neck, up around my leg. Yes, that's it.
More. Those were a couple of the greatest elements there.
Yeah, which is why we gave it an 8. And like I said, I think it would have been even a 10 had they just left it a free-for-all and not had the tag element. I think that was really good. If it had been
a free-for-all, first pin wins.
Yeah.
I'd have definitely given that a match a 10.
Yeah. Now, Owen, Stone Cold, Cactus Jack, Chainsaw Charlie, they did win the match. Owen Hart, this is during his Black Heart phase when he's facing DX because he's the sole surviving Hart. This is after the Hart Foundation is broken up and Brett and Bulldog and Anvil have all gone to WCW to have a terrible run. Completely misused by WCW. That's for another episode for sure. You don't want me off on a 15-minute rant about how the WCW misused Bret Hart and the Hart Foundation. But Owen Hart decided to stay, and this is during his Black Heart phase, and it was a good match. It was a really good match. So it would have been a 10 without some confusing, weird tagging things that they did, and awful Earl Hebner.
Well, and even the tag element in itself just makes no sense when
it's a no
there
DQ
are
match.
no DQs.
And why
What's the point of having the tag?
So what? Yeah, exactly. Why is the one team even listening to Earl Hebner? Why are they? What's he gonna do? Disqualify them
for a non-DQ match?
Yeah, it's a non-DQ match. You can't be disqualified. So that's what hurt it the most, was it being a no DQ match but needing to tag.
Yeah, the whole time you're sitting there going, wait, what? Why are they even listening to the tag rules?
Yeah,
and why is Earl Hebner like trying to get them to follow the tag rule?
Yeah,
there was no point of it.
No, and if Ms. Pie and I are wrong, and it actually wasn't a no DQ match. I'm pretty sure it was a no DQ match. But if it wasn't a no DQ match, then everybody should have been disqualified in the first 5 minutes.
So they announced it as an anything goes tag match.
Yeah, okay, so that's what it was announced as. All right, good. So you remember that part. Good. See, that's why I have Ms. Pie here. He remembers things I don't. So, yeah, anything goes. Why is there tags? Anything goes. What does that mean? Yeah, so that's what hurt it. The overall event, I'd probably give it a 5 right down the middle. The 3 matches at the end, matches 5, 6, and 7 were good matches. The first 4 were all just fillers.
I believe you had rated the anything goes tag match at an 8.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't say
8
that.
body
Yeah,
slams.
Yeah,
I actually gave it a 7.
Oh really?
Because of the tag element.
Okay. Yeah, I only took out 2 points for that because of the tag element. Because I thought it was pretty exciting. They did at the beginning. It was very exciting. Yes, the middle they did some dumb stuff, and then I thought the ending was pretty decent also. And it's Triple H. It's Triple H starting to take over D-Generation X by himself. You can see that he's gearing up to become the captain of DX, and I think he showed a great match. And Billy Gunn. I mean, they're both the New Age Outlaws. Road Dogg too. They sell like $1 million.
Yeah.
Credit to them, because it takes a great wrestler not just to put on a great match, but to put on a great match, you have to be able to sell. You have to be able to sell those moves too.
Yeah. Now, overall for the whole event, I'd give it 4.5. It just below average.
Yeah.
Because the first 3-4 matches were just kind of there were matches.
Yeah, well, the first 3 matches were meh. Match 4 was when we started actually getting something, and then matches 5, 6, and 7 we rated higher because they were better quality matches. And
in the coming years after this, because this came out in '98, I believe.
Yeah.
2000, 2001, you start seeing like events where every match is a solid 8+.
Well, it's not. Yeah, and it's not every pay-per-view that WWE had this problem. It was just sometimes they had this problem.
And this was one of them.
Yeah, this was the event that was definitely not the WWE's best event. I certainly would not give it that even close. But that's our review of No Way Out of Texas, WWE. It's the November. Was it November? I'm not sure, but it's a 98. It's the 98 No Way Out of Texas pay-per-view event. It's got a picture of Kane on it in case anybody wants to see it. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please share it out. Leave us a comment if you disagree with us or you'd like us to discuss anything. Also, feel free to reach out to the page. The reason this happened was because someone sent the page a message, Mayhem Media Inc. on Facebook. They sent us a message and said, hey, could you review this pay-per-view for me? I don't know why they wanted us to, but they wanted us to, and we said sure. So we're happy to review anything, wrestling or TV or movies, whatever you want us to review. So send us a message. We'll be happy to review anything you want. Marcus Frederiksen is going to play us out. Check out his music, reverbnation.com/Marcus Frederiksen. Ms. Pa, my executive producer. The Breeze is actually off screen, but she wasn't a part of this episode. It's great to have her on an episode again, even though she was not actually officially a part of it. I am your host, JD, and that's the end.
Good night.